Hi everyone, today I want to show you how I make my own embroidery patterns using my iPad from sketch to finished embroidery pattern printed on fabric. We're even going to look at some different types of embroidery like line work or filled embroidery. We're going to talk about a lot of considerations from how dark you should sketch to what kind of work works well for embroidery and what does not work well for embroidery, how you can sell these things, all kinds of things like that we're going to dive into in this video. So if you love embroidery and you love drawing on your iPad, this is the perfect combination that you can use for creating personal projects or for embroidery patterns that you want to sell online or in person. I'm Liz Kohler-Brown. I'm a surface designer and hand letterer who loves helping other creatives find their style and sell their work. This is part of the iPad Art Break series where I share short, easy tutorials that you can use to create artwork that you can monetize. My goal is to help you create beautiful work on your iPad that you can then sell. So come and join me. Let's talk about embroidery patterns. So let's start out by talking about a few different types of embroidery you might consider so that you know what kind of imagery to make that could go along with this. So the first one here is just line work. This could be any kind of line work. We're going to look at some examples here, but you might think about an outline of like a hand, this thread, just like the movement of it is kind of fun. So this would be like an easy beginner embroidery project. We could do something a little more complex and do fills. So this is where you're actually going to fill the whole area here. So this area is going to get filled. Each of these are going to get filled with big embroidery sections. And I'm not a professional embroidery artist, you guys, but these are two basic types that you could do. Then we have something that's kind of a combination. This one would be an outline. This is a L and then a nice little outline of that. You can combine that with some fills like we did over on the fill piece. The florals could be filled and the letter could be outlined. So just some ideas. I think there's probably some embroidery artists watching going, oh, there's a lot more to it. So yeah, tell us in the comments because I want to know what all can you do embroidery that I'm missing here. This is how I designed the floral piece, and I put these lines in here because I really wanted to know what direction the thread was going to go in. So like this thread is going to be 2 rows. So we've got 1 row on one side and 1 row on another side so that the embroidery artist knows that you actually put your needle in here instead of over here. So just creating that interesting opportunity for them to create some directional movement and then to separate these petals by doing directional movement in that way. So same idea here. We've got a really simple outline, and then considering those florals, you might even do directional marks on the florals so that the person knows what direction you intended for the petals to be stitched in. I did a few different ones with this hand and thread idea. I think this one turned out really well, although there are some parts that got a little confusing. So that's something to watch out for. Some of these little wrinkles could get confusing. So that's something to be careful about as you design these. In the end, I would say starting simple is probably the best bet. The more simple these are in the beginning, the easier it's going to be for you to turn it into an embroidery pattern. So let me take you into one of these patterns so you can see exactly how these are made. So this is literally just a line drawing. I just did a very simple line drawing, and I tried to make it so that it would be really easy to stitch any of these extra little parts. Now you can see how much more simplified it has to be on embroidery. So that's always something to think about. Like this little area here got a little complicated because I thought, well, I could have my finger here and then a little line there, but it got kind of blurry in the end. So watch out for stuff like that. And my number one tip here is test. If you don't test these, then you may end up having some spots that are hard. If you're going to sell them on an Etsy shop or something, people might complain because they're kind of difficult or confusing. So once you create all that artwork, save those as JPEGs. If you want to print these out on fabric like I've done, we want to create a document. So that document needs to be the size that your actual canvas would be, which is going to be the size of the fabric that you purchase. So for me, I purchased this fabric that's 42 inches wide, 36 inches tall. So that is the size that I chose to use for my yard. So you might want to start by determining what kind of fabric you want first. So here are a couple different examples. We've got this Essex linen from Spoonflower and the Petal signature cotton from Spoonflower. There are a lot of different companies that print on fabric. Spoonflower is one of my faves, but of course use whatever you want. So I think that you can probably see on camera the difference here is number one, the color, and number two, the texture. I love the linen look. I love that like gritty, kind of more traditional feel. This one has a pure plain and white feel, which has its own vibe, but for me, this Essex linen is the best. But that's just my style. So go with whatever works for you. The key here, I think, especially if you're gonna sell these, is to make it clear for the customer what the fabric's gonna look like that they're getting and make sure that they like the style of your fabric that you choose. I did some slightly more complex ones here, these little owls that I'm gonna embroider. And I just find it looks a little more classy over here on the linen. I don't know. Tell me in the comments, what do you guys think? Are you more of a cotton poplin person or a linen person? Got to make your own decision there, but I think the main benefit, you know, some people are going to say you can trace embroidery, you can just do it with pencil. When you're talking about the kind of volume that you might need for like selling in an Etsy shop, look at these. I mean, I've got like 20 drawings here. This would take a really long time for you to draw or transfer, whereas you could just order a yard of 50 of these, sell them in your Etsy shop, cut them into squares and ship them out, or just, you know, order just a swatch and ship it straight to your customer. It makes it a lot easier to monetize when you print your embroidery right onto the fabric. So let's say you've made that decision about your fabric, you are ready to roll, you've got your canvas size that is the width of whatever fabric you have chosen to order. Then you have to make this decision about how transparent or opaque to make your drawing. And I did a little bit of a test that I want to share with you all to kind of see what would work best. Now I want to point out that this will vary based on the kind of pencil that you use in Procreate or whatever drawing app you use. But basically this is my sketching pencil from my Everything Bagel brush set at 100%. To me this feels a little bit dark. I think some people could complain if they bought an embroidery pattern and it's like, I can sometimes see your drawing under my embroidery pattern, so I don't like that. This is 30% lower, so I reduced it by 30%, and you can still see it pretty well, but it's maybe some customers would prefer this because I could see some people who had trouble seeing complaining that this one is too light, so maybe 30% down is enough. But again, you know, 60% down, for me, this is the best, but I think a lot of people are gonna complain about that and say it's not dark enough. So you've gotta make your call, especially if you're gonna monetize this and turn it into a shop. What I did on my first yard was I did a test. So here is the original, here is 30% down, and here is 60% down. And what I also did was I made circles that are the size of my yard so that I know that I'm leaving enough space for my actual embroidery hoop, because I don't want to, you know, put another embroidery pattern right here and then I can't fit this into my hoop. So that was my first step. Make this yard, make some circles that are the size of whatever embroidery hoops you're going to order, and then put your artwork into that, space it out in the yard, and order the yard on Spoonflower. One tip here, if you don't already know this, you can check your canvas size. So my canvas size is 42 at 36 by 150 DPI. Spoonflower prints at 150 DPI, so that is why I'm using that size. Now if I go to turn on my drawing guide, edit drawing guide, and on my grid size I do 150 because my DPI is 150. Now each block represents 1 inch, so that's how I can make these circles the size of the inches of the circles. So if I have a 4 inch, then I need 4 blocks for this to be the size of my embroidery pattern. So for anyone who didn't know how to do that math, that's just some quick Procreate inches math for you. So as long as you've got all those points covered, you've got your drawings in whatever opacity you want to use, you're making sure they fit within the embroidery hoops that you like, you can go ahead and order that on Spoonflower. So you just want to make sure in that preview when you check out on Spoonflower, you see your entire piece. And I don't think you need to have the circles on there. Obviously, you just want to have the embroidery pattern. So making those circles invisible, saving this stock. And I think you could imagine, like, you could either order this to your house, cut them all out and sell them, or you could just be ordering people like 8x8 swatches or fat quarter size and just put a couple embroidery pieces on them if you wanted to monetize this and just ship straight to your customer from Spoonflower. It's question time. This is when I cover a question that you all have asked me in the comments so I can answer you a little more thoroughly than I would in just a basic typed comment. This is from Alicia Bruce, and this is under my vector assets video. She says this question has little to do with the video, which has inspired me to rework my old unused vectors into sets for my creative market shop. Woohoo, go Alicia. I feel like I spent more of my time doing back-end tasks to run the business versus actually creating anything new. It frustrates me because I don't make enough to hire someone to do those tasks, but I can't earn more if I'm not spending time creating new work. Any advice on how to manage the business tasks like creating mock-ups, uploading listings to online shops, editing YouTube videos more efficiently so I can create more art that I love? I love this question so much, Alicia, because we all need to save more time as creatives. We want to be making creative work, not doing the back end stuff that we're not good at or that we don't love. So personally, I use ChatGPT for a lot of things, like helping me list things on print-on-demand sites, getting those keywords, getting all that like meaty, juicy stuff that helps us get found on SEO. I use ChatGPT for a lot of that stuff. The other point, I feel like I would need to look at your business to really tell you like, this could save you time, that could save you time, but just thinking about it generally, I would say do an audit of everything you do and make sure that all those little things you're doing are actually translating to results, and what are those specific results. Also inside my membership, I offer critiques and studio chats where I can do more of an in-depth look at your business. We can talk back and forth. You can share in the community and connect with other artists who do similar work and can help you come up with solutions for saving time as well. So hopefully that gets you started with that audit, and come and tell me what you learned. I want to hear all about it. So before we finish up, I want to share a few tips that I've realized as I've gone through this process. And I would say the first one is to test your patterns. It really becomes clear what areas, especially some of these more blurry areas, it becomes clear what is wrong with a drawing when you try to embroider it. So give that a shot. Make sure your patterns actually embroider well. And I would note how many hours it took. So you know, like you could tell your buyers, okay, this is a 1 hour embroidery project. This is a beginner. This is a 4-hour embroidery project. This is an advanced. So kind of giving your buyers an idea of how much time they're going to have to put into this. You might also suggest some colors. Like, I don't know, not everyone's going to want to sell embroidery thread, but you could suggest some colors or just show some examples of some color palettes that you think would do really well. And if you were going to monetize this, I would also say definitely offer line work and fills so that people can choose, you know, I want to do a line work type pattern, I want to do a fill. You kind of cover both. So I hope you all enjoyed this tutorial and had fun learning about how to make embroidery patterns. Please share your embroidery patterns with me. I want to see these so bad, you guys. Tag me on Instagram. Show me not just your embroidery patterns, but if you actually embroider them, you've got to share that with me, please. I love embroidery so much. It is a second love of mine after drawing on my iPad. So I can't wait to see what you all make. If you'd like this video, you might also like my Draw Better Flourishes video and my Improve Your Hand Lettering video, which will both help you make better embroidery patterns.